Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome back to the Tonight Show. You're here, you made it. I'm Jimmy Fallon, and today we're taking a look at some poetry from an author by the name of Luke Shearer. There's a content warning for this piece, or rather for these poems. Descriptions of violence and bodily harm, so be advised. With that, we are going to go ahead and get in just as soon as I read this. Keep in mind, I am not a professional reviewer. I'm just some guy on the internet who likes reading and writing. The opinions expressed in this video are only opinions. My interpretation of or reaction to the work will not be the same as everyone else's, for better or for worse. I will look for the good and the bad, but no matter what I say, don't be too hard on yourself. Just keep writing. And for those in the comments, please be respectful. Also, I'm so sorry for any mistakes or mispronunciations of names or words. If I come across a word I don't want to say for whatever reason, I will replace it with the word blank. So we've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 poems here. So we'll just, we'll take them one at a time. We'll see how many I can get through in about, 40-ish minutes. Yeah, let's take a look. All right, our first piece. Oh, by the way, one thing before we get into it. This is formatted nicely where each poem is on its own separate page. When you submit to journals and stuff, that's exactly what they're going to look for. So yeah, looks good to me. With that, let's go ahead and jump into our first poem titled Gaza. Peeling plaster and crumbling stone, the scent of cumin and allspice mingle with smoke, billowing in from the cracked windows. An infant's skull bears a scar, the stigmata of iniquity. Blankets on the floor, more tears than water, a crescendo of murmuring, suddenly silence, then every sound, then ringing. Metal crashing through bone. Okay, I've got some thoughts, but let's just take it line by line and see where we go. So again, the title is Gaza, which, if you're not familiar with the situation in Gaza at this point, I don't know what to tell you. Sorry, I don't mean to be blasé, because it's horrific, it's tragic, and yeah, it's hard to compartmentalize. Anyway, peeling plaster and crumbling stone. It's a fine enough opener. Yeah, I do appreciate imagery in a poem for sure. The scent of cumin and allspice mingle with smoke, billowing in from the cracked windows. Yeah, again, pretty good imagery, I think. Sorry, excuse me. I will note this is just hard to talk about because like it just is so tragic and like, yeah, you just feel so helpless, right? Sorry, I don't mean to make this about me, but I'm sure a lot of you out there feel the same way where, you know, we want so badly to just do something, to just help, but like, yeah, our options are limited beyond donating, and even donating can feel futile with just the way Israel is withholding aid and everything. It really is just tragic. Allspice, that word struck me. Let me look that one up real quick. From Wikipedia, allspice, also known as Jamaica pepper, myrtle pepper, pimenta or pimento, is the dried, unripe berry of Pimenta doica, a mid-canopy tree native to the greater Antilles, southern Mexico, and Central America, now cultivated in many warm parts of the world. I did not know that. That's neat. Scent of cumin and allspice mingle with smoke, billowing in from the cracked windows. Yeah. Yeah, I don't have much more to say about that. I think it's a fine piece of imagery. Let's just keep going. An infant's skull bears a scar, the stigmata of iniquity. That's a loaded line, so I'm so sorry I took so long to be silent there. I just had to confirm the meaning of stigmata. And it has multiple meanings, but I think the major relation there is with Catholicism. Stigmata in Catholicism are bodily wounds, scars, and pain, which appear in locations corresponding to the crucifixion wounds of Jesus Christ: the hands, wrists, feet, near the heart, the head, and back. I actually did not know that Jesus Christ had, oh, I guess from the crown of thorns, right? Yeah, I didn't really know that there was a wound on his head. And like I said, that's a pretty loaded line. And like, hmm, I don't know, the phrasing there threw me for a little bit because like I think the iniquity is, on uh the IDF, I guess, right? Um the stigmata of iniquity. But yeah, the way it read at first, it almost sounded like the infant was the one being iniquitous. Which obviously wouldn't track, right? It's a child. Um an infant's skull bears the scar, the stigmata of iniquity. Um yeah, I don't know. Maybe you don't have to, but if you want to clarify that, the iniquity belongs to somebody else. And like I said, it's a loaded phrase, the stigmata of iniquity, because stigmata, of course, has that Christian Catholic connotation. Um, yeah, yeah. Blankets on the floor, more tears than water. A crescendo of murmuring. Yeah, that line's really heartbreaking. More tears than water. Yeah. A crescendo of murmuring, suddenly silence, then every sound, then ringing. Yeah, I think on my initial reading, and still now on this second reading, I think the interpretation there is, of course, a bomb dropping, right? Um, and then this last line, I'm actually not a huge fan of: metal crashing through bone. Like, I think the previous line, every sound, then ringing, I think that's a more powerful ender, a more powerful closing line on this poem. Um, yeah, metal crashing through bone, that really doesn't do it for me. It feels shocking in a way that's not tactful, I guess. Like it's a very visceral image, but besides the visceralness of it, is it really doing that much? Yeah, I prefer this line as an ending personally. And I don't know, if you couldn't tell, I clearly have strong feelings about the suffering going on in Gaza right now, and so this is just kind of hard to read all around. Um, and I've been thinking a lot about, like, writing about such tragedy and, like, at what point is it, like, exploitative? And I don't think this is exploitative, I'll make that clear. I'm not talking about this piece specifically. I'm just kind of, I don't know, thinking out loud here, treating you, the viewer, as my therapist real quick. But yeah, like where is the line we draw, or like what gives us the right to write about these things, and I don't have a good answer, at least not right now. Um, but I do think writing helps us understand ourselves, understand the world, helps us develop more empathy for the other, right? And so if writing about Gaza helps us individually as writers, then I think we should write about it, right? Um, and I've read some pretty powerful poems about Gaza throughout this time, mostly from Palestinians. Um, it's just, yeah, it's so hard to make sense of so much tragedy, and yeah, like I said, I'm sorry because I'm not really even talking about the poem anymore. I think it's a fine poem personally. I like the imagery more than anything, and it gets the message across, I think. Um, and then of course the loaded language in this portion is pretty interesting to me. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I do kind of wonder, like, what's this poem? I like the uniqueness of this poem, right? Like, yeah, like I haven't read a poem quite like this before, and so I really appreciate that. And yet, the message still feels, I don't know. No, I think this poem is still valuable, even if the message of genocide is bad, war is bad, even if those messages are you know, done, even if they've been done before, even if we've heard them several times before. I don't know. That doesn't make this poem any weaker. Yeah. But yeah, again, my main piece of feedback here, I think, would be to, yeah, just cut that very last line and end it here. Um, yeah, sorry. It's a good poem. I think it's a good poem. Um, but yeah, it's just heartbreaking. So let's keep going, and hopefully we'll get some lighter stuff. And if not, that's fine. Artists can write about whatever they want to write about. So this one is called MS. I feel his hands dry and cracked by the nerve damage, his face pained by those little ligaments, slowly eating away at themselves like a reverse buffet. I cannot think of that which came before, the bright-faced man who held the garage door, so my sister and I could play some more. As he holds my shoulder like I held his hand, the pride fades fast from his face. What used to clip along now tumbles at a turtle's pace. Interesting, interesting. The rhyme kind of took me by surprise because it wasn't there in the first stanza. But let's take a closer look. Let's take it line by line. I feel his hands dry and cracked by the nerve damage. I would say that's a pretty effective first line, honestly, because immediately you wonder, oh, who is he? And then the poem will later contextualize who he is. And then cracked by the nerve damage. Pretty good visual, but also, it raises even more questions that you wanna know the answer to, like, what nerve damage, and what nerve damage could do that, right? And just how did this person find themselves in this situation, right? Etcetera. So, yeah, I would say that's an effective opening line. His face painted by those little ligaments, slowly eating away at themselves like a reverse buffet. Oof. Now, see, that's a visceral line that feels like more than the sum of its parts. It's a I don't want to say nasty. Nasty's not quite the right word, but it's an effective visual, right? It's a pretty crazy visual, in fact. And yet it's doing more than just being kind of gross and kind of provocative, right? um, yeah, it's like I'm having a picture painted to me. Yeah, I like it so far. I cannot think of that which came before. I would just say what came before. I cannot think of what came before, unless you're doing a specific meter here that I can't see. That which, that feels superfluous. Just say what. I cannot think of what came before. Yeah. The bright-faced man who held the garage door, so my sister and I could play some more. So like I said, all three of these lines rhyme, which kind of an interesting shift compared to the first stanza. But I kind of like that it fits in with like this, I don't know, this memory of childhood. Um, and I like that visual too. That's pretty unique, I think. The bright-faced man who held the garage door, so my sister and I could play some more. I don't even entirely know what that means, but like I can put the pieces together, right? Like, maybe these people had a broken garage. This family had a broken garage, right? I get the sense that the subject here, the he, him, the MS probably is, I assume those are initials, but I don't know. Um, it's probably a father or a grandfather, right? So the bright-faced man who held the garage door, I assume that that's the father or the grandfather of these children, um, literally holding the garage door open. Like I said, maybe because it's broken or, maybe just a different era. I don't know. I'm not up to date on the history of garage doors, but anyway. Like I said, it's a pretty unique visual and one that I think strongly and creatively explains the love that this man clearly had for the speaker and the sister. As he holds my shoulders like I held his hand, the pride fades fast from his face. What used to clip along now tumbles at a turtle's pace. Hmm. So again, the rhyme is interesting there. Um, I'm not sure I quite understand the last line, if I'm being honest. Um, and also the second to last line is the pride fading fast from his face. Nice alliteration, by the way. But is it doing that because he's dying or because the speaker has done something that we're not privy to, right? Like, and maybe it's the word pride that's the problem, because like if we're just saying that, the life is fading, Yeah, maybe there's another word besides pride that would kind of make that clearer for us. Um, and then the last line, what used to clip along now tumbles at a turtle's pace. I guess I guess we're talking about the subject probably, how he at one point was like, spry and alive. Um, and now he's slow, right? Hang on one second. Oh, MS, of course, could also stand for multiple s- multiple sclerosis. Sorry. Um, yeah, in theory, that could very well be the case. Um, yeah, yeah. I don't know about this as a last line. If you're dead set on doing the rhyme with face, I think that's okay. You can absolutely go through with that. But maybe as an exercise, try writing just like 5 to 10 alternate ending lines for this poem and see if you can come up with something even more clear and even more poignant, potentially. And I'm not saying this is devoid of poignancy. The more I thought about it, the more I started to understand. But I think there's something even more like dead on, spot on that you can put in place of this line. Personally, that's what I think. And if you write 5 to 10 different lines and you find that none of them are up to your liking, that's totally fine too. You can hang on with this. I like the poem. I quite like the poem overall. Like I said, I think really the main criticism I had was just to replace that which with what, just to, economize a little bit. But yeah, I like this one. Let's keep going. Your eyes. I imbibe you, your warm aura enveloping me. Brown, green, and yellow are your colors. Your eyes, 2 pots of fresh light coffee. Energizing, bright, bitter. Served to me by a waitress who waits in a forested diner. The soft glow of the tube lights and the musty smell of the local wood. A cup of your eyes poured out for me into a cracked mug. My tired feet and aching neck comes to rest in my own firm twin bed. The aching absence of what I have never known beside me burrows a hole through the matted carpet, and eroding the floors, down past the earthworms, and skittering voles which occupy my chest, I take my euphoric reassurance within your eyes, or thoughts of them at least. Okay, sorry, I'm just going back because I didn't even notice that the first word of every line is capitalized, even when that's not grammatically correct. It didn't do it on the Gaza poem, but it is doing it on MS and Your Eyes, which just interesting, just the kind of thing that, catches a person's eye. Anyway, let's take this one piece at a time. Imbibe is a fun word and one that I admittedly have never heard before, so I'm gonna look that one up real quick. To take in or up. Hmm, that's neat. I imbibe you. Yeah, I like that. Good word. But even though I like imbibe a lot, enveloping, I think, is sort of a cliche a little bit. Like, and maybe I say that because I find myself using it a lot, but yeah, I think you could find a different word that gets across the same meaning, but is also a little less overused, I suppose. Brown, green, and yellow are your colors. That I wasn't totally sure if I understood. Like, I guess there's a lot of things you can make out of that. Um, Frankly, I just don't know how necessary that line is, to be honest. I feel like it's almost distracting us from the real meat of the poem, personally, because, of course, as the title suggests, the poem is about your eyes. And, I like the idea of kind of painting a more complete picture of whoever these eyes belong to, but I'm not sure I get that from this line. Let's keep going. Your eyes, 2 pots of fresh light coffee, energizing, bright, bitter. Bitter was an interesting word choice there. I don't know. It's like obviously it's a very different feeling from energizing and bright, right? It's kind of it's kind of an antonym in a way. which adds some more depth, but I don't know, seems like it almost doesn't belong just based on the rest of the poem, but let's keep going and we'll decide if that's really true. Served to me by a waitress who waits in a forested diner. Um, call this nitpicking, but I don't know if I really see the purpose in that line either, or in that sentence, I should say. Served to me by a waitress who waits in a forested diner. Um, like the fact that the diner is forested, that's pretty neat, I suppose, but I don't know, like, is this poem really about praising the subject's eyes? Because if so, I think you would wanna go even harder with that metaphor, like, served to me by a wood nymph in a forested diner or something like that, right? Like, something even more magical or heavenly, etcetera, etcetera. You get the idea. The soft glow or yeah, like no, sorry. I think I made my point. The soft glow of the tube lights and the musty smell of the local wood. Okay. Okay, so that's the forested diner. I like that. I like that as a deeper description of the imagined setting here. Yeah, that's neat. I think honestly, I don't know. Maybe that's its own poem, the forested diner. I like that a lot as a concept. That's pretty unique, I think. And if it were a poem unto itself, I think you could do a lot with that personally. Um, the soft glow of the tube lights and the musty smell of the local wood. Yeah, honestly, like, I don't know, I'm kind of more interested in that if I'm being honest. Like, what kind of creatures visit the forested diner and what do they serve there, beyond the subject's eyes? Yeah, that I don't know, I like the meshing together of those two concepts. Anyway, we'll keep going. A cup of your eyes poured out for me into a cracked mug. Mhm, mhm. Don't have much to say there. It tracks. My tired feet and aching neck. Okay, you would wanna change this to come, C-O-M-E. My tired feet and aching neck come to rest in my own firm twin bed. Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I think I get what that's saying where, you know, simply looking into the subject's eyes is like rest for the weary soul or for the wounded body, right? The aching absence of what I have never known, beside me burrows a hole through the matted carpet and eroding floors. Down past the earthworms and skittering voles which occupy my chest. That sentence kinda got away from me. Let's see. The aching absence of what I have never known. Love, maybe? I'm not sure. Beside me burrows a hole through the matted carpet and eroding floors down past the earthworms and skittering voles which occupy my chest. It's like, okay, so first of all, I'm not clear on what the aching absence of what I have never known. I'm not clear on what that is. But then also, it burrows a hole through the matted carpet and eroding the floors. Keep following, down past the earthworms and skittering voles, which occupy my chest. So is this aching absence of what I have never known? Is it burrowing through the carpet and the floors, or is it burrowing through the chest, through my chest, right? Yeah, there's a lot going on in that sentence, and like I said, it got away from me. Um, unless I'm to assume that the chest is where the carpet and the floors are, but it didn't seem like it. I thought we were going from twin beds to here, as in, like, this is the bedroom that we're talking about, right? I hope you can see my confusion there. I don't mean to beat a dead horse by saying all this, but yeah. I take my euphoric reassurance within your eyes, or thoughts of them at least. Okay. So I think there's a lot of good going on here. And like I said, I honestly think you should take this forested diner concept and run with it in an entirely different poem. That's not to say you don't have to keep it here. You can keep it here too. But please write the forested diner poem just as well. I would love to see that poem personally. Um, I like what's trying to be communicated here, and there's a lot of good going on. Like I said, I like imbibe. Um, I do like the metaphor of, the person's eyes as a cup of fresh coffee, right? Um, I think that's a fine metaphor, right? And I think it kind of gets across the affection and the effects that the subject's eyes have on the speaker. So yeah, there's a lot of good going on here. Um, I would just I would just keep reading it over and see where you can do some tightening and some clarifying. I did want to come back to the word bitter, which, like I said, it just feels kind of out of place because that would make me think, oh, maybe there's some nuance to this whole thing. But then the rest of the poem just kind of makes it seem like the eyes are fully healing and fully good, right? And so bitter doesn't really track with that depiction. So I hope that makes sense. I hope all of my confusion makes sense too. You, the author, you clearly know what you mean and what you want to do with all this. Um, and like, it's so hard. It's hard to find that balance. I think I talk about this all the time on this channel, but like, you don't want to give the reader everything, right? But you have to give them enough. And ideally, readers really like to think that they're smart. You want to make your reader feel smart. And so, the best case scenario is you give them just enough so that they can fill in the gaps, whatever gaps you leave, and then they get to feel smart for doing that, right? Now, obviously, there are exceptions to that rule. If you're writing a mystery, you probably want to keep the audience guessing rather than letting them uh, answer everything for themselves. But and the same can be true for a lot of poetry. But I don't know. I appreciate clarity, right? Like when I ask a question about a poem, for example, let's take another look at this poem we just read, the MS poem. I feel his hands dry and cracked by the nerve damage. Remember, my first questions were, who is he? Who is he? Who is the he being talked about? And why are their hands dry and cracked by nerve damage? And I felt we got answers to both of those questions as we read the poem. And so there are going to be questions that your reader has when they read a particular poem. And ideally, you want to give them enough so that either you're answering the questions or that they can answer the questions for themselves, right? Yeah. Otherwise, you run the risk of frustrating them, which I think I talked about in a recent video here on this channel too. So let's keep going on to this next poem. I'm going to look up this title, because I have no idea.
Koyaanisqatsi.
Koyaanisqatsi. And it looks like it's a movie. Um, yeah. Let's see, a 1982 American non-narrative documentary film. Interesting. Okay, sounds very experimental, very art house. Drawing its title from the Hopi word meaning life out of balance. Okay, so that's also what this title could mean, life out of balance. The renowned documentary reveals how humanity has grown apart from nature. Okay. Okay. In that case, let us dive in. Son of Adam sits above creation with ease, sticks his rig inside the ground and fucks it till it bleeds. The violation of Abel turns the rivers red, the sins of a species brutally misled. And when that box of ashes is thrown from the sky, then the son of Adam will shrivel up and die. The inflamed seas will bubble onto the earth and consume the souls wanting of rebirth. Wires spun back and forth between the smog. The day of disaster sounds the croaking of the frog. Interesting. Okay. So very biblical. Son of Adam sits above creation with ease, sticks his rig inside the ground and fucks it till it bleeds. So in that case, I think son of Adam just means like the whole of humanity, right? Um, Sits above creation with ease. It's kind of an interesting line. And I think, if you think about the Bible, there's that bit where God says, like, what does he say? That he, like, gives dominion, or gives Adam dominion over everything on the earth, right? And yet, look how they misuse that dominion. Um, I'd say it's a pretty strong opening stanza. Son of Adam sits above creation with ease, sticks his rig inside the ground and fucks it till it bleeds. Yeah, it's seems like a pretty clear metaphor for oil drilling, right? The violation of Abel turns the rivers red. Um, the violation of Abel can only make me think, when Cain killed him. Um, but I have a hunch that it actually means like the violation of the world, right? But then I almost feel like we're crossing our wires a little bit, um, because like Abel can't represent the world because he's also a son of Adam, right? And he was the righteous son of Adam compared to Cain, but I could be misreading it anyway. The violation of Abel turns the rivers red, the sins of a species brutally misled. So maybe it's more saying like, seeing as Abel was killed, uh, it's I don't know. Sorry, I'll try to explain my train of thought here. It's like with the killing of Abel, that ushered in every sin that eventually led to the destruction of the earth, right, and our turning away from nature. Um, but like I don't know. That's see, it's phrased as if that were the original sin, but it's not, right? The original sin was eating the fruit of the forbidden tree, or eating the forbidden fruit rather. Um, so yeah, I don't know. You can call that nitpicking for sure. I still think I get the idea, right? Third stanza. And when that box of ashes is thrown from the sky, then the son of Adam will shrivel up and die. That one, I'm not sure I know what that's in reference to. Maybe that's like a verse from Revelations or something. When that box of ashes is thrown from the sky. Yeah. Is that just like, is that just a metaphor for like, the apocalypse in general? Yeah. I don't know. That one I'm not familiar with if it is an explicit biblical allusion. If it's not, if it's just waxing poetic, then I don't know, maybe you could make it even more intense, right? Yeah. The inflamed seas will bubble onto the earth and consume the souls wanting of rebirth. There should probably be an apostrophe. If you're trying to say souls plural wanting, then apostrophe after the S, which I think is what we're going for. The inflamed seas will bubble onto the earth and consume the souls wanting of rebirth. Wires spun back and forth between the smog. The day of disaster sounds the croaking of the frog. Okay. Yeah, so it sounds like, just a revelatory poem kind of. And I'm not saying like the author is literally a prophet, revelator, fortune teller, whatever. Um, I think they're just sort of writing from that voice, right? Um, that last line is pretty interesting. I'm not sure if it has to do with a specific prophecy or anything, but it certainly reminds me of Egypt, the biblical account of Moses and the plagues, right? I'm pretty sure frogs was one of the plagues. Um, yeah, I don't know. Like I don't know why I'm having such a hard time like saying anything here. um, it kind of reminds me of The Second Coming, if you've read that poem. Who wrote that one? Yeats. Yeah, William Butler Yeats. Um, yeah, just kind of a description of the apocalypse. And the second coming is really neat because, when you hear the phrase second coming, you think, oh, the second coming of Jesus. But Yeats makes it sound like Jesus is like a monster, like a beast, an enormous beast, which is really, really fascinating. It's a fascinating take on the second coming. And so, yeah, I get similar vibes here. And of course, given the title, I feel like we were very clearly talking about a naturalist message. This feels, correct me if I'm wrong, this feels kind of evangelical, this idea of like, we destroy the earth until it can't take anymore, at which point Jesus will come back, right? Um, yeah, I don't have too much to say. I guess I wonder, about kind of the deeper meaning here because I do feel like it's an environmentalist piece, and yet I don't know, the ending, I really don't know. Like, I feel like we started very clearly with the whole environmentalism, but then it spun more into just biblical, biblical illusion and biblical prophecy. And I guess maybe I wanted more of the environmentalist message. Yeah. And I can kind of see it with like wires spun back and forth between the smog. Like, unless that's also poetic, I took that as, literal wires being thrown about. These man made things that have no place in nature, right? In theory. Hmm. Like I said, I feel like I don't know that I'm saying anything very substantive here. I don't know. I'm having a hard time for some reason. Um, I hope any of this is helpful. Jeez. We'll keep going. Let me check our time real quick. Okay. We got like 5-ish minutes. Um, maybe real quick we'll just do some quick thoughts on both of these poems rather than taking them both line by line. So, Split Figs. Your tired face and your stretch marks, the love of your labor. Your gait suggests wealth and wisdom. Lilith, Kamalma, Bastet, their beauty pales, but not to compare, for this is a love that only gives and never takes or envies. Envy is not from you or for you, simply nailed to you, like a plank to keep you from love. Abandonment and isolation are foreign concepts to you. Kindness and empathy are your baseline. You are the nectar of the earth, the blooming pomegranate which Adam proudly plucked himself and devoured without offering you a bite. You are the beating heart, the breadbasket, the womb. You are irrigated soil which gives life and bears great burdens. Only you can form life, only you can sustain it. Interesting, okay. I know I said we would do kind of some quick thoughts, but there's a lot of curious stuff going on here, and I kind of do want to take it all piece by piece. Your tired face and your stretch marks, the love of your labor, your gait suggests wealth and wisdom. I think that's clear enough. That's pretty explicit, right? It sounds like a woman who either has just given birth or is about to give birth, right? Lilith, Kamalma, Bastet, their beauty pales, but not to compare. For this is a love that only gives and never takes or envies. Um, that line feels sort of overplayed. In fact, is that a quote from something? That sounds like a direct quote. This is a love that only gives and never takes or envies. Um, maybe I'm thinking of that. What is that scripture verse that's like, uh, it envieth not. Is it charity? Charity envieth not? I think so. I don't know. Envy is not from you or for you, simply nailed to you like a plank to keep you from love. Um, see, I got a little confused there. I think that the you here is like a general you, as in anyone in the world. Um, but we were using you to talk specifically about a specific person before, right? So I would rephrase this, unless we are talking about this specific person, but it doesn't really sound like it given the way, we just said this is a love that only gives and never takes or envies. I don't know. So I don't know, maybe rephrase this as like envy is not from us or for us, simply nailed to us like a plank to keep us from love. Because that I think strikes a chord where it's like, uh, taking the Christian route here. Um, Jealousy, envy, it's sinful, right? And yet because it's sinful, we don't mean it, right? It's not us, right? That's the devil if we're taking this from the Christian perspective, right? It's the devil who encourages us to be envious, right? Um, so yeah, I would generalize that statement personally because I feel like it's true for all people, just based on the perspective that this poem is taking. Abandonment and isolation are foreign concepts to you. Kindness and empathy are your baseline. I would say like I would say those lines are decent, but I don't know. I almost wish there were more showing instead. Like, how is kindness and empathy the baseline for this person? Show me that. Show me their actions. Show me something specifically they've done that shows their kindness and empathy, right? You are the nectar of the earth, the blooming pomegranate which Adam proudly plucked himself and devoured without offering you a bite. Hmm. Pomegranates, of course, and that's pretty connotative of a lot of different things. Uh, Pretty sexual, right? Um, yeah, I'm not sure I get the reference there. Like I don't think we're talking about the forbidden fruit. Um, And also it's confusing because it says, like, "You are the blooming pomegranate which Adam proudly plucked himself and devoured without offering you a bite." How could Adam offer a bite of the pomegranate to the pomegranate, right? We're saying that you are the pomegranate, but also Adam didn't offer you a bite of yourself. I don't know. I think the metaphor got a little lost there. Um, yeah. Also, it sounds very like, what's the word I'm looking for? Uh Very, well, gluttonous for sure, but also, like, sexually gluttonous, where it's like we're painting a picture of Adam as, like, uh, kind of selfish and deviant and, takes and takes and takes, right? Which is interesting. I am beginning to wonder if this is actually a poem about Eve, right? I'm just reading through it silently now to see if I can confirm that. That could be the case. Yeah, it could be. Let's just take the last stanza now. You are the beating heart, the breadbasket, the womb. You are the irrigated soil which gives life and bears great burdens. Only you can form life, only you can sustain it. Yeah, I do wonder. Maybe that is about Eve. And yet I was kind of under the impression that this was about, somebody that the author might know, that this was a poem for someone that they love, for the mother of their children or something like that, which also could be the case, right? But yeah, I'll just reiterate, same goes for this last stanza as with these 3 lines up here. Give me a little more showing, please. Show me how this subject is the beating heart, the breadbasket, etc., etc. Yeah, a little more showing, please. And yeah, we'll just very, very quickly go through this one. Wise rules for life. Brush your teeth, brush 'em well, else when you die you'll get sent to hell, and if they rot, the dentist will have to pull them out, which means that you will loudly scream and cry and shout. Don't ride your bike too fast, don't ride your bike too far, leave speed demonry to southern men in race cars. And always remember to look both ways before you cross the street, if you'd like to keep walking on both of your feet. Eat your greens and drink your milk from the udders of the cow. Turn off that damn TV and do your homework now. Okay, that's pretty good. Feels like a nice child's poem, honestly, yeah. Um, my advice on this one would be make it even longer, right? Wise Rules for Life, good title, especially compared to the content of the poem. See how many rules you can come up with and, like, honestly, see if you can start to make them, like, ridiculous. Just get crazy and get fun with it, right? Yeah. I like it already, and I think you can take it to the next level. You can make it even more fun, even more, yeah, hectic, even more crazy. Yeah. So, there's a good batch of poems here. Um, like I said, I feel like I'm having an off day today, so, Luke, I hope this feedback was okay. There's a lot of interesting stuff going on here, so keep going for sure. Um, yeah, we'll leave it there, I think. I hope, like I said, I hope any of this was helpful. But Luke, thank you again for submitting. Viewer, thank you for watching. And keep in mind, ultimately, this is a rough draft.